Dedicating an entire season to acts of mending is a bold move. As you may know, the most recent round of the Winter of Care and Repair Challenge has just wrapped up. In this episode, the challenge's creator, Jeanna Wigger, and I catch up to review the experience both as individual participants and as members of this vibrant and inspiring community of menders. So whether you're in the Southern Hemisphere with winter just round the corner, or you're in the Northern Hemisphere and the next round is some way off, you'll find out what benefits it could bring you should you decide to participate. So stick around a few minutes for all that. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 15 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis, and I'm looking at the way that my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. How are you doing, lovely one? Is spring springing or autumn autumning where you are? So spring has definitely been springing here in its usual one step forward, two steps back kind of way. But what brings me lots of hope this time of year is sowing seeds and watching them germinate. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that trying to grow some of my family's food is something that I like to do as part of trying to live more sustainably. This year, I'm attempting to grow even more veg than ever before in my little garden. So in the garden already, I've got garlic, chard, potatoes, spring onions, rhubarb, raspberries and a fig tree, all at various stages of growth. And pretty much all the windowsills inside our house are covered in little pots of earth with different seedlings peeking out. There's baby aubergine plants, courgettes, butternut squash, patty pan squash, pickling cucumbers, curly kale, cavallonero, 3 different types of chili, 2 different types of dwarf French beans, and 8 different types of tomato. I know that sounds a lot, but I'm actually only growing like 2 or 3 of each thing. And I'm kind of relying on some of it not succeeding because I don't really have the space for all of that. Anyway, it's super fun seeing these little plants germinate and getting bigger each day. I'm also planning on applying some of the advice that Pippa Chapman gave me as part of the garden consultation in episode 112, including trying to grow some stuff vertically to make the most of the space that I do have. If you've got any plans for growing food of your own this year and want to tell someone, I would love to hear. So just send me an email or find me on Instagram. So I guess that's my sustainability win, that currently my growing plans this year are going well. So a sustainability fail that I need to highlight, and it's actually something I've still got time to turn around. It's that, like last year, I haven't provided very much food for pollinators in my scheme. So pollinators are so important for both food production and a healthy ecosystem in general, yet in most places in the world, their numbers are in decline. So I'm going to pull my finger out and sow some flower seeds over the next week or so to help them out in my area. Speaking of helping out, 6 lovely people have signed up this week to the Check Your Thread Patreon to help keep it afloat. So massive thanks to Lou Ann, Lacey, Yvette, Jordan, Vicky and Laura. You are all amazing and I am incredibly grateful. There's no way I could make this podcast and keep it ad-free without the support of all the lovely patrons. But if you're not in a position to support the podcast financially, a really helpful thing that you could do is leave a 5-star rating and a short review of the podcast in your podcast app of choice. It'll only take a minute or so and it would really help the podcast reach new listeners. So thanks in advance for that. Right, so let's get into the topic of mending and, of course, the Winter of Care and Repair. So big congratulations to the listeners who took part in the most recent round of the challenge. It was my first stab at the Winter of Care and Repair, and I can vouch that it is not for the faint of heart. So no matter if you completed an act of care and repair every single day or not, massive well done for participating to any degree. So this episode is the first of 4 that is going to form the Mending mini-series. In last week's intro, I mistakenly said it was a 3-part mini-series, but no, it is in fact a 4-part one. The 4th episode in this series will feature Jeanna again, as she answers some mending questions submitted by some patrons. So obviously, mending is a topic that we cover regularly in this podcast, but mending to keep existing garments in use for longer is such an important part of sewing and living more sustainably. So I thought it was high time that we gave it the spotlight again. If you're into this topic, there are a bunch of other episodes that you could line up after this one. I actually made a 3-part mini-series about the make, do and mend era a couple of years ago. They were episodes 28, 29 and 30, if you haven't already heard those. Plus there's some solo episodes that I think Jeanna actually mentions in this conversation that you're going to hear today. So there's Intro to Patching, that's episode 47, and Visible versus Invisible Mending, and that's episode 68. And before you listen to today's episode, make sure you've listened to episode 115, The Winter of Care and Repair with Jeanna Wigger. That will put everything that we talk about today into context. So until next week, take care of yourselves and those around you. Enjoy your first week of Me Made May if you're challenging yourself this year. Please leave a rating and a review for the podcast in your app, and enjoy! Recording. Hi Jeanna, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello Zoe, thanks for having me again.
So can you remind us all who you are, where you are, and what fills your days?
Yes, so my name is Jeanna Wigger, and I'm American. I'm currently living in southern Spain right now on kind of a indefinite sabbatical sort of situation. And what fills my days is a lot of sewing stuff, cycling, hanging out with my dog and my husband, and just we've been in Spain now for about a year, so we're settling into a bit of a routine with life now. It's nice.
Brilliant. So we previously spoke for the podcast, and that became episode 115. So I heartily recommend that listeners go and listen to episode 115 if they haven't listened to that yet before listening to this one. So the last time we recorded a conversation, we were talking in advance of the Winter of Care and Repair Challenge, which is the one that you created. And now that we've passed the spring equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere, the challenge is over. So could you give us a brief recap of what the Winter of Care and Repair Challenge is, when it takes place, what people have to do to take part, and what the benefits are of taking part?
Yeah, absolutely. So Winter of Care and Repair is a project that I started for myself. It was just a personal project I started in the winter of 2020 to 2021. So that was a winter that I was home a lot, and
weren't we all?
Right. And really just looking for, I was looking for something to kind of meaningfully give structure to my days. And so what the project is, or the challenge is it takes place from the winter solstice through the spring equinox. So it's about 3 months. And my personal project has been to kind of each day during that winter season to do something around the house, some sort of care, repair, maintenance beyond kind of regular maintenance of household items. And usually it's clothing. So the challenge is it just completed its 4th year. And anyone who is interested in kind of participating or kind of taking on this longer marathon personal challenge is welcome to join.
Wow, you really sold it then.
Right. Mend every day for 3 months. You can do it.
But many people did, didn't they?
Many people did. Yeah. This year we had, I didn't exactly track. I didn't ask people or require that people signed up. They were welcome to create their own challenge. This is an important piece of Winter of Care and Repair, is that it's not a prescriptive challenge. If you want to participate, you can choose what you want that project to look like. So I have, for the past 4 years, I've fixed something every day, but some people decided that wasn't going to be manageable for themselves. So they, decided that once a week they were going to fix something. Some people decided they wanted to focus on a specific kind of mending or care and repair skill. Some people want to just get to the bottom of the mending pile. Some people want to focus on self-care. It's really an individual project. So you can decide what's going to be right for you.
I love that so much. So how did this year's round, or the round that just finished, how did that feel different from the previous 3, both personally and as a community?
Yeah, well, the biggest difference this year was the kind of small explosion of participants that we had. I think really a lot thanks to the opportunity to talk on this podcast and kind of spread the word to other people who were interested. I feel like there were at least, I can confidently say there were at least about 50 people who kind of participated and saw it most of the way through. But then I also had people that kind of came out of the woodwork at the end and who I hadn't heard from at all, but were like, yeah, I've been doing this all along. I didn't want to share on social media because that didn't feel right for me. But yeah, so that big community this year really made it feel different.
Did it feel okay for you? Did that feel a little bit overwhelming, at least at the beginning?
I think at the beginning there was so much momentum. It was probably like the last month of it that got a little more challenging for me, honestly. And one of my kind of the hardest things for me, honestly, was not the mending every day, but it was trying to like take good pictures and come up with something to post on social media. And I didn't really accomplish what I had hoped to do for that. But it was, I did manage to keep up with kind of sharing other people's mends and sharing the things that they'd posted to like my stories. And I did get really good feedback on that people enjoyed that, seeing what other people were doing, kind of knowing that there's other people out there still going. So I think that helped keep the momentum.
Yeah, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed those posts that you did and when you were sharing, because it was like so interesting to see what other people were doing and how other people were approaching it.
Yeah. And that felt but more manageable for me. And, I don't really flatter myself to think that like everyone just wants to see what I'm doing anyways. So I think it was more about being able to kind of give everyone sort of a platform. And it's not just let's follow Jeanna and see what she's doing, but it's like, let's see what everyone out there is doing.
Yeah, well, you were the hub of the social aspect of the challenge, weren't you? Because I mean, that's the nature of Instagram, really, isn't it? There's not like a gathering aspect to Instagram. But yeah, I think you did a fantastic job of corralling everyone and motivating everyone and sharing and celebrating. So thank you for all your hard work.
Oh gosh. Yes, it was a pleasure. It was really
So were there any new challenges or like altered circumstances that you encountered this time around? I mean, you said that there was a little bit more in terms of the sharing and the participatory aspect for you.
I think that's something that was exciting and different for me, that kind of changed the experience in another way, was that I really focused on trying to connect with people off of social media as well. So one of the aspects of my project this year was to, once a month, I wanted to try to mend with people in real life and virtually. And so
cool.
I did manage to do that. As you know, I was saying that we're still getting settled here in our new home in Spain. And so one of my focuses of this like kind of whole life right now is trying to find a community here. And so I've been fortunate enough to meet a handful of folks who are also interested locally here, who are also interested in sewing. And we started up like little monthly stitch hand sewing project gatherings. And those kind of organically ended up turning into little impromptu mending workshops. So
cool.
That was very cool. I, of course, brought mending stuff to, some people crochet.
Like, I had no part of that.
right. Just happened. But people showed up they're like, I have this strap on my tank top that's broken, and I have this random sewing supplies that I found in my house. Like, can you help me with this? So that was very cool. And then I also, Zoe, participated in the Check Your Thread monthly mending meetups.
Yes. So they started in January, didn't they? So yeah, we're now in April. So we've had 6 now. Yeah, so that's been a fun opportunity for mending in community, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. The timing of it was very nice to for me in Winter of Care and Repair. It was very nice to have that opportunity to kind of see people from really all over the world. Right? There's some people from all over the place that have joined.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that turned up to those Zoom meetups were taking part in the challenge as well, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah. So that was very cool to actually like see some faces of people who I had participated.
Yeah. For me, it felt like a nice little kind of like push when things were flagging a bit.
Yeah. And I think certainly going forward, now that Winter of Care and Repair is behind us, that will be kind of a nice little continued nudge to kind of keep some momentum going.
Yes. So I know that you asked for feedback from participants towards the end of the challenge. So were there any common takeaways that people shared or any specific responses that like stuck with you from what other people have experienced?
Yeah, it was amazing to read what people shared. And then there were definitely some big themes. The main thing that stood out is that this thing that kind of started off as just sort of me like trying to get through the winter with some purpose, like actually really seems to be kind of an impactful thing for the people who participate in it. And the general feedback was that people felt it was really, really worthwhile.
Oh.
It also kind of reminded me of the really broad spectrum of awareness about repairs. So for me personally, I've kind of had this since childhood, really this like awareness. And it's always been something that like members of my family we've just fixed things. We do this sort of thing. So it wasn't really new to me, but a lot of participants said that doing Winter of Care and Repair really pushed them beyond just the idea of just fixing clothes to like, oh, maybe I could fix my coffee cup, or I could fix this gate latch, or, fixing things beyond clothes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And it's definitely just reconfirmed for me that I will do this again. I will host again. Lots of people said that they're excited to participate again next year.
Did you hear from anyone saying, oh, I didn't participate, but it looked really fun and I want to sign up next year?
Yeah, there were definitely people who were like, oh no, I missed it, but I want to do it next year.
It's so funny that people feel like they can't do it without
I know, but
the parameters of a challenge.
Right. But just like having like, this is the time when it happens sometimes can help sort of be that catalyst for people to do something.
Okay, I reckon all those people are obligers.
Right.
Or upholders, like, no, this is when we do it.
When we do it, exactly. Yeah, one of those things. So there was a couple like kind of overarching themes to the feedback that I got from people beyond sort of the general, we really liked it. So there was some of the specifics where people generally, or feedback around the structure of the challenge. So people generally like the length of it. This is feedback from people who participated, followed along, and then like took the time to write to me. So that's the the pool of responses that we're pulling from here. But they generally like the length. They felt like the longer duration led to feeling less pressure. And it gave them flexibility to kind of tailor the project to themselves. So maybe people did something daily, maybe people did something weekly. Other people had kind of little goals for each month, and it felt more manageable. And then it really helped to promote like real habit change. They felt like it really changed their relationship with mending because it was longer.
That's so impactful. I hope you feel awesome about that.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It was really, really cool to read through. And I'm super appreciative of everyone who did take the time to like send me a message about their experience with it. People also really liked the kind of do-it-yourself, design your own goals. They liked the flexibility. It made it more meaningful and less prescriptive. Some people thought that they would put more thought into personalizing their goals next year.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. There was also lots of people that liked the winter season. So kind of that connection to the season, connection to sort of this ancestral way of life when winter really was the time that you were stuck indoors out of the elements. And that was the time that you really did kind of care for and prepare for like the busyness of the rest of the season of the year. And it gave them something to focus on during kind of those darker months. So those were things people liked about the structure of the challenge. Almost everyone commented positively on the community aspect of doing something like this. So they loved seeing what others are working on and posting. They liked sharing ideas, skills, and information. And then seeing others post and having their posts shared was kind of motivating to help people persist when it was like, when we're getting like weeks and weeks into this challenge. And then just knowing, even if they weren't posting and active on social media, people shared that just knowing that other people were out there doing this was really exciting. And I did have a couple people who participated from the Southern Hemisphere just because they liked the aspect of doing this big project, this longer project, while there was this group of people doing it. So I thought that was really cool too.
That's so cool. And also, I guess that maybe if it's the summer and it's super, super hot, maybe you're also spending more time inside with the air conditioning on.
Yeah, it's also a great time for outdoor projects too. So I know one person did a lot of like tree planting and garden maintenance stuff, which absolutely counts. There's one more umbrella that feedback here, and this is they're all my favorite. I don't know, but this is a very cool tool. But lots of people commented on how it impacted their relationships. So, and this is really what I feel is really, really at the heart of Winter of Care and Repair, is because it is that longer challenge, you really have this time to like be really thoughtful about what you want to do. It's long enough that if you want to change course partway through, you still can and still feel like it's you're getting something out of it. It's not, kind of a gonna bear it and get through it sort of thing. But people felt that it changed their relationship with mending. So people mended more, they learned new skills, they increased their practice. It broadened their ideas of what could be repaired and what they're capable of repairing. So anything from like buying a specialized shoe polish to like match the specific color of this shoe, to repairing their kids' books, in addition to clothes. That all it helped them to really change their habits with mending. It changed their relationships with their belongings. So these things that like fill our space that we interact with every day. A lot of people felt that like by actually taking good care of them, they really had a greater appreciation for things. They thought about repairs beyond clothes, and they thought they were more thoughtful of like, what could I do with this thing that maybe is broken or not perfect or not really serving me in this way? Could I fix it? But rather than just tossing it. And then there was also kind of this aspect of like self-care through stuff care. So,
ooh,
by taking care of like our things around ourselves, we oftentimes kind of get that little bump of like satisfaction, or just like the little flow state that you can go into when you're really like focused on and really engaged in a task.
Sure. And I can also see how maybe there's an element of self-care through the thing that's always a bit broken and it just is annoying.
Yes.
And then finally, like, the thing's no longer hanging half off the wall or whatever. Like, that is in and of itself making your life a little bit easier maybe going forward.
Yeah, I think so. And that was definitely something that people were like, I finally got around to fixing the blah, blah, blah that I have been fighting with or dealing with for months. Yeah.
I can just completely agree with like, I'm just everything you're saying. Like, yes, I found that completely.
Yes. The last aspect of the feedback that I got, and I know this is a lot, but people were super.
No, I love this.
I
love all this. And thank you so much for doing your homework, like collating it all.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This was a really good opportunity for me to like really dig into like the what and why and how and sort of what's next for all of this. So the last piece that still falls under relationships is a lot of people commented on how it impacted their relationships with other people.
Ooh.
So especially during the beginning of the season, around the winter holidays, a lot of people were traveling and they mended for their friends and family who they were staying with.
Same.
Yes, here also. And so, that started conversations about sustainability and clothing waste and kind of that aspect of mending, but it also brought up conversations about family members and like out came great grandma's sewing kit. And then they got to connect with, the people who remembered great grandma and, you're using the supplies, some family members.
But that's really interesting. Like initially when I knew that obviously it was going to go across the period of Christmas or any other kind of holiday that people often celebrate at that time of year, I was thinking, that's going to make it more difficult. I didn't equate the thing that actually that is such an opportunity in and of itself to start important conversations, to be seen to be mending more broadly than just your literal people you live with. Like that is such a valuable opportunity, and I hadn't thought of it until you just said that.
Yeah, and I think as long as if you're prepared and you know that you're going to be doing this thing, so you like bring your little sewing kit or whatever, and you can go forth and do it. It's kind of these ripples that we want to see in all of these like aspects of sustainability that we think about and stuff. It's like, it's great to have the community of people who are interested and focused on it. But this was like the coolest thing, I think. I probably said that 8 times now.
No, but I agree. So who did you mend for? What did you do that was for somebody else throughout this challenge?
Yeah, so I obviously did lots of stuff for my husband, for our household. But I also, I'm counting my, there were I think 4 different people that I taught to mend during our little in-person gatherings.
Amazing. That's so powerful.
Yeah, and then we were also like, the gatherings happen in cafes in the area, so we're in public, sewing our stuff, and people would come over and kind of ask about that. So that was another cool thing. And then this was technically before Winter of Care and Repair officially started, but I was home visiting my family in the States over Thanksgiving, and I showed up to my aunt's house, and she greeted me with a hug and then showed me her sweater that her friend from New Zealand had hand knit for her that had like a bit of the yarn was damaged and it was starting to run. So I fixed that right away. And then my sister-in-law asked me to teach her to darn as well while I was there. So technically before, but we talked about all the things that one does talk about.
Amazing. Oh, that's so cool. And you had your mum visiting as well, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. She was here. And she came to one of our sewing gatherings.
Cool.
And so this was I'm not into giving myself like demerits or failures.
This is so Gretchen Rubin.
But if I did fail at something this season, I missed 2 days of mending. I know, right? How? So both of those days were days that were just really full of like life and family stuff. So one day was when my mom was here, and we drove to Granada, and we like stopped in this amazing little village on the way, and I brought like my socks that I was going to mend because they're small and portable. By the time we got checked into the Airbnb and got dinner and came back, it just completely left my brain. I woke up at like 2 a.m. and was like, oh, but by then it was already tomorrow. So it didn't matter. I wasn't going to go do a stitch. Picked it up the next day. And then the other day I had just my husband and I don't even remember what we were doing. I think we probably went for a bike ride or something. And then like it was sunny, so we like drank a beer in the park or something.
Good. I'm glad that those things happened. And I'm glad that you were like, quick, I've got to mend. Like, no, you were living your life.
Exactly.
That's part of it.
Yes. There's this whole like Winter of Care and Repair can be about self-care and relationship care. And it doesn't have to just be, I've got to get home to like do some stitches. So I'm very gentle with myself about this. And I hope that people who participate also give themselves that grace too, because I don't think there's any sense in doing something for 3 months if you're going to like beat yourself up and berate yourself about not doing something perfectly.
I wonder if next time there could be maybe something that you inbuilt and say, okay, I'm going to give myself 7 get off jail free cards or something like that. If that's the kind of person that you are, you could bake it from the beginning, and then when life inevitably happens, you could like, it's okay, I've got my get out of jail free card.
Yes. No, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I think that'd be a great strategy, especially if you feel like if you sort of fall off of your plan, if you feel like you might not be inclined to keep going, if you don't have like, you broke that chain, to use another.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's that breaking the chain. It's like, so my husband is taking our kids for a week currently to visit his family in the north. And my son does Duolingo, you know that app? Mm-hmm. For like language learning, and there's also music and maths on there as well now. So he uses my phone because you have to have an iPhone for the music part, and my husband doesn't have an iPhone. Anyway, so he uses my phone for Duolingo, and he's got a 92-day streak, and he's not going to have access to my phone for a week. So like, I'm doing a little exercise. I'm doing a little Spanish every day whilst he's away to keep his streak up. I mean, I was thinking, because he's doing music, he's doing maths, he's doing Dutch, he's doing Italian, he's doing German, he's doing loads. Like, he's only 7. He's really into it anyway. But I was thinking, oh, maybe I should start a new language that he's not doing, and then like see how far I can get. And then I could be like, like start Polish or something, and then they could come home and I could be like peppering Polish into the sentences. But no, I thought actually, no, I could take up this opportunity to get my Spanish a bit better. So I've gone back to like 7-year-old Spanish.
Perfect, though. That's
But yeah, so what I was saying is that there is real potency in the sense of a chain and the sense of an unbroken chain, isn't there? And I can definitely see how, for many people, having that break would be demotivating. But if you could kind of plan for it, and like, for example, when with Duolingo, they have like a freeze, and if you've earned enough whatevers, you have a freeze. There's probably a lot of people shouting at me going, it's not how Duolingo works, but from what I understand,
yes.
you know, so you can miss a day if like life happens. So I wonder if, that could be a
build in some fail safes for yourself to, because life does happen. And I want this project to be kind of really a value add.
So is there anything you want to ask me about my challenge?
Absolutely. So this was the first time that you participated, right?
Yes, because I only heard about it, I think, I heard about it last year through Shams, I think, while she was doing it. And then that was like, oh, I need to know more about this for next year. And we did. And it went that well.
And now here we are.
And now here we are, and we've done it.
Yeah. So what did you think about it overall? And then what did you think about the plan that you designed for yourself?
I think I underestimated how much brain space I would have for it. I created a very comprehensive plan. My plan was amazing. I had these various aspects. I was going to be either mending a textile item in my home, there was decluttering or deep cleaning, something in the garden, or something for my body. So that would either be like batch cooking a load of healthy meals or going for a run or something like that. So I think that sounded amazing. But in reality, I was very scattergun with like, oh, I've got to do something. Oh. And just like, what have I got time for? What he's doing? I'm at a stage in my life where I have two fairly young kids and part-time jobs and stuff, and I just didn't have as much brain space as I wish I had to really give it the real thought and planning during it that I feel like I would have liked to have done it. But I did do an act of care and repair every day until the beginning of March. I kind of fell off the wagon. It was a case of like one of my kids was sick and then the other one was sick and then I was sick and then I took on some sewing for money. Mm-hmm. So any time that I would have been sat down doing something for my own, like altering a garment or something, I was doing that. So it was just a case of time and
life happening.
Life hard. But I am so glad that I took part, and I'm so proud of myself as well, because even though I didn't completely finish it fully to the spring equinox, it was so good to have that impetus. There was things that, to be honest, there were garments that were sitting around that I'd decided I was going to alter in some way, that I'd figured that out to me made Mays ago. So 2022, and I still hadn't got to them. And finally, I don't know what it was. I think it was just that, like, right, okay, this is the season where we do this. And I got some of those garments, a couple of necklines that weren't working, sorted that out. One that was a kind of a tunicky dress, turned that into a top to make it more wearable. Things that literally been sitting there for like 18 months or so. I finally did. And now I'm wearing them and I'm so happy that happened. And then there was lots of other kind of random things that, like, I did quite a lot in the garden actually. And I was like, my garden has never looked this good. Because also it was quite a good season for that, because it was transitioning into the winter and that's when lots of things were dying down. So there was getting rid of the old plants that had died and spreading compost on things. And then because you could see, because everything had died back, then it was like, all right, well, that needs fixing, that fence panel needs fixing, I need that. And so that was really good. I think that the timing for that, for the northern hemisphere at least, worked very well. I didn't do as much decluttering as I was planning. And a lot of the things have, as I've mentioned many times in my intros of my sustainability fails, a lot of it is still in the hallway. So I didn't do as much of that, and I did very little care of my body, I must admit, which is always, my body and my health is always the thing that, don't take as seriously as I probably should. So I think that maybe that shouldn't be part of this. That should be something else I need to focus on. point, you know.
Right. Yeah. So what would you do differently if you were to participate in the future?
Ooh, I will. I definitely will. I think that either the thing that we said about maybe giving myself some get out of jail free cards, so I didn't feel like if I missed a day, I lost the streak. Or maybe say, look, I do this 5 days a week, and just have that inbuilt flexibility for when some days are just so busy. Maybe I was also putting a lot of pressure on myself to take a photo every day and share it. And that, you know, trying to remember to take a before and an after and then post it. And it's time consuming, isn't it?
Yes,
And that
it
in and
is.
itself becomes a job.
Right. And I don't, because I kind of got myself a little bit like balled up in that too this season, because I did want to be a little bit more accountable on social media and share a little bit more. And it's like, shoot, I forgot to take the before picture, or, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that now because I'm not in a place where I can like take a pretty picture that's going to be like, not anything anyone wants to look at. So,
yeah, well, exactly. Most of my stuff happened after dark, after the kids had gone to bed, and the lighting in here is terrible after dark. And I was thinking, this is not going to be very inspiring.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I don't have a requirement. There's very few requirements in this challenge at all, but posting to social media is not one of them. If that feels right for you, awesome, but it's not a requirement. And because it's a whole other thing. It's like a whole other thing.
Exactly. You know, as we were discussing, like, it has real benefit. Like, people do like to know that other people are participating and they are interested in what other people are doing. So I wanted to participate in that aspect of the challenge and be that, you know, you got to see it to be it kind of thing. But then, but it's finding that balance between doing that and participating in that way, but then also it not becoming a big thing. And I was saving all my stories that were related to it in a highlight, and then the highlight I didn't even know this, has a maximum of 100 posts in a highlight. And when I hit the 100, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of sharing. So I'd weigh that differently. I don't know. I really wanted to show as well that there was some diversity in what I was doing. It wasn't all patching socks,
right.
Although I think probably people think I was just patching socks, because I did patch a lot of socks.
That's sort of what it felt like for me. For like, it was a really heavy sock season.
Sock based, yeah. That's something I'll really take away. And it sounds, in a sense, it sounds so trivial, but it's kind of life changing in that you can patch socks and it works really well. And I'm wearing patched socks right now. These are socks I've had for many years, and they have some sentimental value. That might sound strange, but they do, because somebody special gave them to me. And now they're back on my feet, and they've lasted many wears and washes since.
Yes, yeah, that was, I think, the biggest revelation for me this season. Like, in terms of like a concrete takeaway that will really like change my mending going forwards is, you can patch a sock. You can patch a sock.
It's quicker than darning, people. It's
durable.
And it's actually a technique that probably is better for those kind of fine knit socks, you know, not the kind of woolly, hard wearing or hand knit ones, the thinner, more summery weight shop bought ones, you know.
Yes. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I did back a little ways on my Instagram grid. I did like a case series and all the different sock darning and sock repair techniques that I had done, and kind of talking about pros and cons of each of them for those lightweight, or each of the different types of repairs for those lightweight socks. And the patch kind of won out. It was the most durable. It actually stretched. I used all just like old t-shirt scrap fabric for my patches. I think you and some other people said that they'd used like donor socks that had lost
the sacrificial sock.
The socks that had lost their mate, or
a lot of them are ones that my kids are grown out of, for example.
Perfect, yeah. So, but making a patch for the sock out of a very similar fabric. It's stretchy, it's easy to hand sew on, it lasts.
In front of the telly.
Yeah. You're not darning away for hours, and then just find that the like edges of the darn stretch the fabric and make another hole, which is sad.
Yeah, but I'm going to put that really good post that you created of your experimentation with different kinds of darning techniques and repair for socks. I'll put that in the show notes, because that was really interesting.
Perfect.
I loved that.
Yes. And that is not, I cannot take credit for all of that. That was like the community knowledge. I just tried them all out.
Well, I'm not suggesting you should invent several different new methods of darning. I'm saying the way that you'd gone about it so systematically and analysed it was really interesting.
Yeah. No, please do share. And I hope it reaches a few more people who are fighting with sock mends too.
Absolutely. Right. So I think that what we need to talk about now is the challenge is over until December for round 5. But obviously those items that need repair are going to keep on coming. Now that we don't have the frame of a challenge, we need to work out how we can fit mending more into our everyday lives, unless we're just going to end up with a massive pile in December again. So do you have any thoughts or advice on that? Like, that's something that I guess you've been thinking about. Challenges finished.
Yes. I think that one of the biggest things is about being prepared. So for me, having both the mending supplies and the items that need to be repaired kind of accessible at any given time. So this means that I'm basically able to pick something up when I have a minute. And it's not just like a heap stacked up in the basket or on the shelf that you like don't want to make eye contact with because it's just scary and overwhelming. So that for me helps, rather than thinking about like mending as this separate task that has to be done. I kind of try to prepare myself so it's something that's accessible. And this is something that I do during Winter of Care and Repair as well, kind of this preparation, but it serves me well throughout the year. So one aspect of that is creating a stockpile. So for me, a stockpile is different from a stash. And it is like the resources that you need to kind of have this like sovereign capability to fix whatever you have. So it is, maybe it's zippers, it's zipper pulls, it's scraps of fabric for all sorts of different types of patches that suit the clothes and textile items that you have. Could also expand out to being repair items for other kinds of materials. So Sugru for fixing rubber or plastic things, super glue, and having everything in one place too. So this I think is important, not that it's just like in the sewing room or in the sewing area or in the box. No, this is like knowing where your stuff is so you can easily go and access it. And maybe having like a little emergency mending kit in your bag, just a needle and thread and a button. And really, honestly, just a needle and thread and like something to cut that thread with can, like, then when you see that button is getting loose and you're out, you can fix it really quick. And then it doesn't have to go into the mending pile and be there. So kind of being prepared for any,
I love this.
Any situation. Maybe having a little kit that stays like wherever you do get to relax and have your sort of downtime. If this feels like something that is amenable to what you see as downtime, like having a little bit of sewing kit near the television or in this space where you sort of relax, having that accessible there so you don't have to like go and get the stuff. A lot of this depends on your space and what your space looks like, but there's not going to be a perfect mix for everyone.
Yeah. No, but these are great tips.
Yeah, this is just kind of things that help.
That makes me think of the aspect of, you were talking about physically being able to access the stuff. But I'm wondering if also having maybe a time set aside, maybe when you, as you just said, if this is amenable to you, when you sit down to watch a certain thing, you have that. Or when you go and have a coffee with that particular friend who's also into maybe knitting or something else kind of that they could sit and do. Or the mending meetups for, the Check Their patrons. Having that little time, like this is when I do a thing,
Absolutely.
like having that accessible time, not just the accessible resources.
Yeah, I think both things are definitely true and have to go together. Because if you have the time but not the things, it might not happen. If you have but not the time, same thing. You might just sit there. So yeah, having kind of a plan or a menu of options,
And I think that's something that's been helping me, because I have noticed that since the challenge that things are starting to kind of build up, because life has not got any less busy, to be honest, since then. It's been helping me. Literally, I've got half a sock patched over there, and I was thinking, and I was feeling bad about it, like I used to feel bad before the Winter of Care and Repair about all the things that are like piling up. But then I was thinking, oh no, it's okay, I've scheduled the 2 April mending meetups. I know I'll get to that. Like, even if I don't get to it in the next week or two, I know that there is that time for it, and it's making me feel I don't know if guilt is the right word, but I can feel a bit more relaxed about that. I don't have to feel
Right.
bad.
Now is not
that,
the time that you need to be worrying about that, because it's going to happen at this future date, and it will be done at that point. So you don't need to,
because that is designated. That's for that. You know?
And I mean, like you said, the stuff that needs to be taken care of and mended, it doesn't stop. I feel like mending is like gardening or any other sort of task. It's like, do I not sweep the floor because the dog's going to come back inside and shake and it's going to go, I do sweep the floor, and then I'm going to sweep the floor again tomorrow. I'm going to mend this sock and I'm going to mend the other sock tomorrow. And then I'm going to just expect that there's something else that's going to be coming down the way. So, I mean, because it is like that and life just goes on, and when we own things, we use things, and when we use things, they wear out and they need that time. So kind of getting, setting things up for yourself so you can kind of have that mental bandwidth or when you have the mental bandwidth and the time and the energy to take it on, you can do it.
Yeah. It's like removing a few of those hurdles that otherwise might prevent you from actually doing it.
That's another thing that works for me is I kind of think about like batching my projects. So if I have a chunk of time, rather than sit down and like mend from start to finish one thing, I will, if I have time that I can be in my sewing space, I'll kind of go through the mending pile and I'll triage it. And I'll sort things like, these are things that need to be repaired or altered using the sewing machine. Do I need a patch? I will like cut out the patch fabric, put the thread that's the right color with that garment, kind of get the supplies ready. And then same thing with the stuff that I'm going to repair by hand. Do I have the matching yarn? Do I have the matching thread? Do I need a patch? Do I pin it in place? Whatever I need, I kind of put those things together. And then when I have 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, cool. I know I can go in and like, everything's ready to just like hem those pants or whatever it is. Like I kind of have already planned when I have that big chunk of time. And then it's not quite as like, it's not quite as daunting. Now you don't get the kind of satisfaction of like checking that thing off the list, but I'm super flexible in my brain with like what I give myself credit for. So like looking at a nice sorted mending pile and knowing that past Jeanna has helped future Jeanna.
Yeah. I was just thinking that, it's like, there's a little gift for future me.
And then I will feel so accomplished, and maybe I'll get to fix 2 things in one go because everything's all ready and it's there. I think that, new makes and sewing stuff, from scratch, I think a lot of us kind of do this too. It's like, you're not just going to sit down and make the thing. There's like the whole preparing the pattern and the sizing and the ironing and the washing the fabric and the cutting the thing out. That often happens in several stages too. So kind of thinking about preparing like for mending in that way can be helpful.
Absolutely. You're right. We don't sit down and we've had an idea of a garment and then by the end of that session it's done. No, there is so much prep. And as most people who listen to this podcast are garment makers or quilters, and we know how much prep goes into it before we get anywhere near a sewing machine or a hand needle. So treating your mending projects in the same vein is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeanna. That was so interesting. And funnily enough, like I'm so amped for the next challenge now and I've got to wait, but
there will be mending in the meantime.
Exactly. Using the tips that you just shared. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Zoe, for having me on and for taking part in the challenge this year. It was really excellent.
Brilliant. So where can people find you?
So I am on Instagram at The People's Mending, and I sporadically share things about mending and ideas, tips and tricks there, and that's kind of the best place.
Fantastic. I'll put that link in the show notes. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!